The meeting of the Committee on Legislation, Rules, and Policies of the Board of School Directors will please come to order. Will the Secretary
Recording
please
in
call the roll?
progress.
Director Herndon?
Present.
Director Jackson has asked to be excused. Director O'Halloran?
Here.
Director Vanoy? Present. Director Zombor?
Present.
That's 4 members present. We have a quorum.
The Chair will ask the Secretary to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Members of the audience are invited to participate. Those who do not wish to participate are asked to remain silent during the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being conducted from the Central Services Building. It's also being broadcast on the MPS YouTube stream, the links to which may be found on the MPS website and the upcoming meetings page. Agenda items and attachments are also found on the upcoming meetings page of the MPS website. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
De las escuelas públicas de Milwaukee. Si desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor llame al 312-626-6799 e introduzca el número de reunión 832-0725-4267, seguido por el símbolo de número. Luego, introduzca el código 883149, seguido por el símbolo de número. Nuevamente, para escuchar esta reunión en español, llame al 312-626-6799 e introduzca el número de reunión 832-0725-4267, seguido por el símbolo de número. Luego, introduzca el código 883149, seguido por el símbolo de número.
For each of our items of business, we will hold a discussion and public hearing. If you wish to speak, please fill out a speaker slip and bring it to our secretary. Virtual speakers are asked to remain on the platform until you are called upon. After speaking, virtual speakers may follow the rest of the meeting using the broadcast information previously mentioned. For the sake of fairness tonight and to give everyone a chance to speak, the chair reserves the right to limit the length of time allowed to any one speaker. Disruptive or disrespectful behavior will not be permitted. If it occurs, the meeting may be paused and those involved may be asked to step out so we can continue in a safe and productive manner. Thank you for helping us ensure a positive experience for everyone. And now, given that our focus this year is literacy, we have some help with our messages from one of our young readers. I'm just pulling the message up. Okay. Just grabbing the video of our young reader. I think the one you had was, does the Kingsley one not work?
It's
okay.
not working.
Okay, well, I can just read quickly. The committee, okay, so welcome to tonight's committee meeting. Committee will accept public comments on tonight's agenda items. Speakers may only address the items for which they've registered. Questions from the public may not be answered during the public comment period. Following public comment, the committee will begin its discussion and no additional comments will be accepted. When you're called upon to speak, please state your name and spell your last name for the record. Written testimony will also be accepted for transmittal to the board. Send this testimony to the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53210, or email it to governance@milwaukee.k12.wy.us. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictates that all comments, questions, or requests should be directed to the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. Also, no one other than members of the board, designated staff, and those who have been invited to present or participate in items of business will be allowed on stage before, during, or after the board and its committees. And I know I was not as cute as Kingsley, but if you have a child that would like to read for the board, send a message to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Now, let's begin. Madam Secretary, item 1.
Item 1 is a work session on policy review, consideration of and possible action on Section 6000 Finance. Madam Chair, the Office of Accountability and Efficiency has requested that this item be withdrawn from consideration.
Okay, very well. We will hold it, and then we'll work with the Office of Board Governance on any of your recommendations before bringing it back to the committee for consideration. Just want to be clear, we're not bringing 6,000s back. We're just going to hold it for now. What is the next item?
The next item is item 2, also a work session on policy review, consideration of and possible action on Section 8000 Operations and Support Services. The recommendation is that the board determine how it wishes to proceed. The administration has requested that policy 8601 on controlled substance and alcohol policy for employees who transport students be withdrawn from consideration.
Okay, would the Office of Board Governance please present the item?
Madam Chair, members, this is a continuation of our work with our Neola partners. We're bringing the next chapter, the 8000s, which concerns policies on operations and support services.
Do we have any members of the public who wish to make comments on this item?
There are no requests to speak on this item.
Okay, we will begin our work session. Do any committee members wish to set aside any policies for separate consideration? And we're just looking at the Section 8000 packet. Director Herndon?
8120.
Okay, Director Herndon would like to set aside 8120, is that volunteers? Okay. Any other policies that we would like to set aside? We'll give everyone just a minute to look at their notes. Director O'Halloran, do you have one to set aside?
I asked ahead of time about 8141, and I believe we are looking into it, but
8141 is required reporting of staff conduct.
yeah.
Okay. We'll hold it aside, and then we can always hold it in committee if needed when we talk about it. Any other policies from the 8000 packets to set aside for discussion? Director Herndon, did you have any more in the 8000 packet?
I have a note here, but I'm not sure I brought my thing, but 8145.
8145 is the annual reports to DPI. Does that sound right?
Yes, there's something weird in it, that's why.
Okay. And you know what we can do, we'll set it aside for now, and then when we get to it, if you can't find your notes on it, we can always set it aside in committee and then come back when we bring the rest of them back. And then once, just as a reminder, once we get through all of these first drafts, we'll still do another round, hopefully in June, of all of the draft policies. So this is not the last time we'll be reviewing them. Anyone else for 8000 packet?
8121.
8121, which is
About the background checks.
background checks for contracted services. Okay, background checks, contracted services. Okay, any others?
Um, 8700.
8700, which is lactating employees. Okay. So I have, Madam Secretary, let's just make sure ours match. 8120 on volunteers, 8141 required reporting of staff conduct, 8145, which was annual reports to DPI, 8121 background checks for contracted school services, and 8700 lactating employees. Is that what you have?
I have that.
Okay. Then, Madam Secretary, what is the first policy set aside?
The first policy set aside is policy 8120 on volunteers. This policy was set aside by Director Herndon.
Director Herndon, would you like to ask any questions on 8120 volunteers?
The idea that the responsibility for volunteers would be put up on the superintendent, I think her plate is full enough that she should not be responsible for recruiting community volunteers, reviewing their capabilities, and making appropriate placements.
Would you suggest superintendent, typically when, Ms. Koala, do you want to speak to the
Sure.
process?
There's going to be a definition section that will ultimately be added to the policy manual. But within policies, when it says superintendent, it means superintendent or their designee. So this would be the chief that oversees the volunteer function.
Does that satisfy the question?
That's fine with me. I wonder if it's fine with the superintendent, because
Superintendent Caselius?
that, you know, I just think that that's going a little bit too far for her chartered responsibilities, but she can speak for herself.
Okay.
Chair Zambor and Director Herndon, I will absolutely continue to champion the public schools and to look for volunteers and to get community partners. But I know that our new Department of Family and Community Engagement and Partnerships does a lot of that work, and I know that Mr. Brian Litzy and his team do the background checks and make sure that they have everything that they need. So I think with the definition there, that I can have it as designee, I think that that's just fine.
Okay.
That's good with me.
Okay, thank you. Do any other committee members have questions on 8120? You want us to move each one from here? Okay, so with that, what is the pleasure of the committee with respect to policy 8120? Oh, well, would you like, we could take a few other things off the superintendent's plate. Director O'Halloran?
I move approval of 8120 as attached.
Okay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On the motion by Director O'Halloran to approve policy 8120 as attached, Director Herndon?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Vanoy?
Aye.
And Chair Zambor.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Okay. Madam Secretary, what is the next policy set aside?
The next policy set aside is policy 8121 on personal background check contracted services. This policy was set aside by Director O'Halloran.
I like how you're taking them in numerical order. That was not how I listed it. Sorry. No, it's okay. That's good. Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. And I had asked this question ahead of the meeting, and I just wanted to have a little discussion about it. So background checks are good when someone has already been bad. I just wanted to give us kind of the idea that, like when I was going to sell at an event that was working, so I work for a Catholic organization, and I was going to work directly with youth, I was required to go through training ahead of time. And if you are going to interact with youth, even in an exhibitor sense at a conference, you had to pass a course. And so I know that we don't want to train contractors and subcontractors, but is there something that we can, what kind of verbiage do we have in our contracts, or is there a way that we can set our level of expectation for how contractors and subcontractors will interact with our children? Because a background check is good, but if they've never been caught for something, that doesn't necessarily protect my child.
Administration?
President Zambor and Director O'Halloran, I agree that it is, troubling sometimes when you don't know who's in front of your kiddos with that. I'm going to turn it over to Janine Adamczyk, who can talk about what is actually in our contract and what we ask them to assure us on.
Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Janine Adamczyk, Director of Procurement and Risk Management. Our contracts require background checks, and they're fairly robust. Once the vendor submits the background check to Employee Relations goes through it, and anything that they find questionable, they will tell the contractor, this person cannot work in our schools, for example. We do not list specific types of behavior that would be prohibited because of the fact that what if we miss one thing? All right, we leave it, we've discussed this with the city attorney's office as well, to keep it as the way that we have written it, that background checks are required. We don't offer a course, we don't suggest a course because we also don't want to state that one course is better than another, but we feel that the way that our contracts are written puts the onus on the contractor to ensure that he has the appropriate staff that would be in our buildings. And if not, like I said, Employee Relations will immediately state that an individual is not allowed in our building, and then that contractor must replace that employee, or they can't do business if they don't have a replacement, for example.
Any follow-up, Director O'Halloran?
Yeah, to my point though, like, it doesn't catch people who haven't been caught. So a background check is only as good as who's been caught. And I would be curious, I don't know if I want to hold it in committee, but if there are examples from other districts or Council of Great Cities Schools on anything that they might suggest in order to ensure that we are protecting our students to the best of our capability.
I guess would administration be okay if we held it in committee and then maybe Director O'Halloran could work with Whitney possibly on some of the Neola options that were available through the Neola process and see if anything fits what you were trying to get at and then come back?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to make that motion?
Sure. I move that we hold this in committee while I do my legwork and work with administration to determine if there are alternatives that may be better.
Okay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On the motion by Director O'Halloran to hold policy 8121 in committee, Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Vanoy.
Aye.
And Chair Zambor.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, what is the next policy set aside?
The next policy is 8141, required reporting of staff conduct. This policy was set aside by Director O'Halloran.
Director O'Halloran?
It's truly my show tonight, isn't it? So I set this aside because I think, I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull it up. So it requires notification when there is somebody who is convicted, but it doesn't talk about no contest. And so, sorry. So I was just wondering if if we're too narrowly defining it, and if the city attorney has reviewed this to make sure that we're not missing any potential risks there.
Administration, do you want Director O'Halloran to repeat the question for?
Sorry.
Oh,
so
yeah. I think Dr. Caselius has it, and then we'll.
President Zambor, Director O'Halloran, I'm going to let Ms. Chambers speak to what she's been able to find on this so far.
Okay.
Director O'Halloran, Chair Zambor, members of the committee. At this point, I do not have a clear definition for you regarding the question. However, we do have it back with Neola, and they are working with us on this one. We are also in a work session with them on Monday. I believe it's an 8-hour session, so we will be pulling every policy that we've set aside to go over Monday along with some other policies. So we can communicate more in depth between now and then, Director O'Halloran, on the question, and we should have a response back by mid-next week.
So I'm going to move that we hold this in committee until we have further review.
Okay. Any other board member or committee members have any comments or questions on this one before we go to the vote? Okay, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On the motion by Director O'Halloran to hold policy 8141 in committee, Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Vanoy.
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next policy set aside, please.
The next policy is 8145 on annual reports to the Department of Public Instruction. This policy was set aside by Director Herndon.
Director Herndon?
Yes, I'm questioning the verbiage in item J, where it mentions Opportunity Schools and Partnership Program, which many of us know that as the OSPP. And I simply want clarification as to what the purpose of this is, that OSPP is in this. And if it's not legitimate or valid, maybe we should take it out.
Administration, and I'm going to take a guess that because the legal note at the bottom references the state statute, we put it in here because the state statute is relevant to it, but I'll let administration comment.
Chair Zombor, Director Herndon, and members of the committee, we'd like to pull this one and give it just a little bit
Okay.
more thought and check in with DPI, et cetera.
Exactly.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Director Herndon, would you like to, or do we need, okay. Director Herndon, would you like to make a motion to hold it in committee?
Yes, I move that we hold 8145 in committee
Okay.
at this point.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
I'm sorry, on Director Herndon's motion to hold policy 8145 in committee, Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Vanoy.
Aye.
And Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next policy set aside.
The next policy set aside is policy 8700 on lactating employees. This policy was set aside by Director O'Halloran.
Director O'Halloran?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to pull it to see if we can possibly expand on it. Just from the standpoint, I'm glad that we allow lactating employees the opportunity to express breast milk. I will just say, once the breast milk is expressed, it needs to go in a refrigerator, and pump parts need to be washed. And so I don't know that I need it in a policy, but I'm just wondering how we, go beyond making sure there's adequate space, but making sure that they have adequate tools that they need.
Administration?
Director Zombor and Director O'Halloran and members, I don't know if you want to have it in the policy or if you want to have it in the regulations on our guidance around how we would. Procedures, yeah, to do.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know that it needs to be in a policy, but I just want to make sure that we're not doing the bare minimum required by law, or, we're fully embracing that it's best for our kids who are possibly going to be K-4 kids in a couple of years, so just want to make sure that they have the tools that they need.
That's very good. I will look into that in terms of regulations. I think, given that these policies are going to come back in June, it's one we can note and we can look at whether this would be a policy or in regulation.
Okay. Is that okay, Director Helen?
It's fine by me.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion on this one?
Do we need to make a motion on this if I'm fine with it as is, or just?
Well, you have to approve it.
Oh,
Members, you would still need a motion to approve it as presented or
Okay.
whatever your intent is.
I move approval of the policy 8700 as attached.
Okay. Did any other committee members have comments on this one? No. Okay. Madam Secretary, if there's no further discussion, please call the roll.
On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve policy 8700 as attached, Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Vanoy.
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Okay. Madam Secretary, if there, okay, now we need a motion to approve the balance of the draft policies in tonight's packet. May I have that motion, please? Director Benoit?
I move that we approve the balance of the policies for work session, policy review, consideration, possible action on Section 8,000, operations and support services.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, thank you. The secretary will please call the roll.
On the motion by Director Vanoy to approve the balance of the policies in Section 8000, Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Vanoy.
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 3, part of the work session on policy review, consideration of and possible action on policy 5451.01, Wisconsin Academic Excellence Scholarship.
Would the administration please present the item? Or is it Office of Board Governance? Sorry, what Office of Board Governance? Present that one? Someone want to present the item?
Director
I'll
Zom-
it at once.
Director Zombor, members of the committee, this is an item that was listed for a work session, so we are willing to take any questions that you have regarding this item. Otherwise, we recommend that it is approved.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just peeking. Okay, but this is something that I just want to make sure the administration went back and looked at it, because I think there were some questions and you were fine with how it was written based after you received those questions.
Yes,
Okay.
we were asked to look at it again. Excuse me, I'm sorry, Directors
No, it's
on
okay.
board, members of the committee, Paulette Chambers, Chief Advisor. We were asked to look at the item again and make sure that everything was intact. One question that came as recent as this afternoon was the word board in the policy. As Clerk Koala said, this item is going to come back with definitions, and district and board are used interchangeably, but we are going to, we did have the word board changed to district, not to confuse the board for having to approve. It is a district item, not a board item.
Okay. And if I recall, I think the questions I had previously about this, I just wanted to make sure we were okay with the way the GPAs were being calculated. I think there was a little bit of a difference between a weighted GPA or, as long as everyone looked at it, double-checked it, and you're good with it, then I'm good with it.
Directors on board, members of the committee, yes, the Office of Academics did go through this, and we took the question as it came and made sure that it was updated, and I believe the response was also shared.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, any comments on this one? Otherwise, I'll go ahead and move approval of policy 5451.01. Okay, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On the motion by Director Zomber to adopt policy 5451.01 as presented in the attachment, Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Vanoy.
Aye.
Director Zomber.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 4, consideration of and possible action on policy 5410, promotion and retention. Madam Chair, the administration has asked that this item be withdrawn from consideration.
Okay, very well. What is the next item?
The next item is item 5, also part of the work session on policy review, consideration of and possible action on policy 5411, third grade promotion and retention. The recommendation is that the board determine how it wishes to proceed.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zon, members of the committee, this item, Paulette Chambers, Chief Advisor. This item is one that was brought back for us to check on the third grade retention. There were some language questions that came about in this item. Once again, we did work with the Office of Academics to ensure that the language was correct and that the policy was written appropriately. So we are recommending that this item be approved this evening, as we have went back and verified the information. We are joined by Chief Mims Howell if there are any further questions.
Okay. Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public who wish to make comments on this item?
We do not.
Okay. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? No. Okay. What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director Herndon.
I move that we accept the recommendation of administration on the consideration of and possible action, policy number 05410.
11. 5411.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
My eye jumped up. 11.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, the secretary will please call the roll.
On the motion by Director Herndon to adopt policy 5411 as presented in the attachment, Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Vanoy.
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 6, also part of the work session on policy review, consideration of and possible action on policy 9141, school engagement councils. The recommendation is that the board determine how it wishes to proceed.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zon, members of the committee, Paulette Chambers, Chief Advisor. For this item, it was recommended and asked if it would be best to add the month in which the report would be brought back. It was decided that it would not go into policy, that this would be better put into the AG, or as what we currently call procedures. So it can be listed, but it would go into the procedures, not the policy.
Okay. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? And actually, do we have any members of the public who wish to make comments? I should do that first and then.
We have no speaker requests on this item, Madam Chair.
Okay. Do we have any committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Okay. What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director O'Halloran?
I move approval of the policy as attached.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, the secretary will please call the roll.
On the motion by Director O'Halloran to approve the policy as presented in the attachment, Director Herndon?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Vanoy?
Aye.
Chair Zomber?
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 7, part of the work session on policy review, consideration of and possible action on policy 9501, charter schools. The recommendation is that the board determine how it wishes to proceed.
Would the administration please present the item?
Good evening, Directors on board, members of the committee, Paulette Chambers, Chief Advisor. For this item, there was questions around the language of the 3% charge or a charge being sent regarding the fees to the charter schools. The language is now to state that there will be no less than 3% charged and in accordance with state law. So I think this met the need of the request, so we are recommending that this be approved.
Okay, thank you. We do have a member of the public who wishes to speak. Quentin Claiborne.
Hello, Quentin Claiborne, K-L-A-B-O-N. Thanks so much. I think it is really important that Milwaukee Public Schools Administration and Board clarify where they stand on existing and future charter schools. Most of the changes in this policy appear to be tidying up, but 3 major changes stand out. The aforementioned 3% administrative fee. One removes the purpose of Milwaukee Public Schools charter schools as focused on underserved students, innovation, and autonomy. And then one removes the sentiment, the board encourages the establishment of charter schools as vehicles to support improvement of the academic achievement of pupils of MPS. Does the board no longer feel that chartering adds value to the district, or is this something more innocuous like Neola cutting out the fluff of past policies? Given the events of this year, I hope you understand fears about the former. I say that because Milwaukee Public Schools does quite well chartering schools. On the 2025 Ford and ACT examinations, Milwaukee Public Schools had just 20 schools that outperformed where Wisconsin would expect students to score based on the school's poverty level. To rephrase that, just 20 schools overperformed controlling for poverty. 11 of those were charter schools, 6 of them are leaving this summer. So I hope the administration and board have a robust discussion that answers the question, has the board changed its stance on charter schools? How would changing their stance affect current district charter schools? And how would changing their stance affect possible future district charter schools? Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? No? Okay. What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director O'Halloran?
Move approval of the policy as attached.
Okay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On the motion by Director O'Halloran to approve Policy 9501, Charter Schools, as presented in the attachment, Director Herndon. Aye. Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Vanoy.
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 8, part of the work session on policy review, consideration of, and possible action on Policy 9150, school visitors. The recommendation is that the board determine how it wishes to proceed.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zombour, members of the committee, Paulette Chambers, Chief Advisor. This is a policy that was initially pulled regarding language around visitors in the building who were sex offenders and having to check in with the building. There were parameters that needed to be followed. Legally, we have followed every requirement by state law. Director Jackson asked that this item be pulled. It was pulled. We sent it to both the city attorney and Neola. We revised some language for clarity. We brought it back again. Again, it was asked to be pulled. We had it reviewed one more final time. No changes were necessary. The policy is intact and in accordance with law regarding who reports and who they report to and what has to be reported. So we are confident that this is accurate as it has been reviewed not only by Neola attorneys, but also by our city attorney.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public who wish to make comments on this item?
Madam Chair, we have no speaker requests for this item.
Okay. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Nope. Okay. What is the pleasure of the committee? Director Benoit?
I move approval of policy 9150, school visitors.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, the secretary will please call the roll.
On the motion by Director Vanoy to approve, to approve policy 9150 on school visitors as presented in the attachment, Director Herndon. Aye. Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Vanoy.
Aye.
And Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 9, action on a request to amend Administrative Policy 9.13, Records Retention and Destruction, and adopt retention schedules. The Office of Board Governance recommends that the Board, 1, approve the proposed revisions to Administrative Policy 9.13, and 2, adopt the attached retention schedules.
Would the Office of Board Governance please present the item?
Madam Chair, members, this policy was last reviewed in 2015. We're requesting approval of the proposed policy revisions and the adoption of the most recent record retention schedules published by the Public Records Board. Currently, our policy language prohibits the destruction of records, and that's really starting to create a problem for many of our administrative offices and our schools, which are all running out of room to store hard copy records. So approval of this item will remove that restriction and enable our office to move forward with creating a procedure that speaks to record destruction. And additionally, having the most recent retention schedules adopted will also enable us to bring forward the public records policy that we are currently drafting with our Neola partners. Upon approval of this item, our office will begin preparing procedures for dissemination to our schools and departments.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public who wish to make comments?
We have no speaker requests on this item, Madam Chair.
Okay. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director O'Halloran?
Thank you, and I did send this ahead of time, and I did get the response, but just for the record or for the public who's listening, on page 2, it says that the retention schedule will be 7 years per state statute, will retain longer in accordance with adopted general record schedule attached. I just wanted to know more about who's responsible for monitoring the changes. Is there like a service that disseminates the schedules, whether it be through like WASB or a government entity, just to make sure that we're in compliance with the state requirements? And OBG did provide a response, but perhaps you can share it with the committee.
Office Board Governance.
Sure. Madam Chair, members, the retention schedules are put forward by the Wisconsin Public Records Board. I did consult with them, and they do not proactively send out notices when new schedules are adopted. But she did say that once we adopt the schedule, anytime they do put out new ones, we can just go ahead and implement them. It does not require new approval, so there's no penalty if we don't immediately notice it. That said, she did also advise me that the Department of Public Instruction is really good about disseminating updates to schools, and they have a very comprehensive guidebook that goes into more specifics that are targeted to the types of records that schools maintain. So within the policy itself, one of the revisions that we're requesting is to specifically codify that the board clerk, as the district's records custodian, is the executive officer that would be in charge of administering this policy. So it would be the responsibility of the board clerk to periodically check for updates and make sure they're implemented.
Thank you. Any follow-up?
And just as a follow-up then, I just want to make sure that we have like a process that is just, you know, with turnover, I never want to see, oh, that was somebody's job and they left and then that didn't get transitioned. So just to make sure we have really tight processes around some of these compliance requirements to make sure we're always on the right side of things.
It is our intention, members, to craft a procedure related to the policy once we ultimately adopt the Neola version, and we will make sure to include, specifically codify that information.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other committee members who wish to make comments or ask questions? No. Okay. What is the pleasure of the committee? Director O'Halloran?
I move approval of the Office of Board Governance recommendation as it pertains to the records retention and destruction and record retention schedules as attached.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, the secretary will please call the roll.
On the motion by Director O'Halloran to approve the recommendations of the Office of Board Governance, Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Vanoy.
Aye.
And Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Just in time for spring cleaning. All right, Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, that was the last item on tonight's agenda.
Okay, there being no further business before the committee, this meeting, oh, and before I just want to thank Whitney and administration, Office of Board Governance for all of your work with these policies. I know the time that you are pouring into this process is immense, and it makes these meetings go smooth, the amount of work you're putting on into it on the front end. So I just want to thank you all for the labor that you're putting into it, because I know it's a really heavy lift, and it does not go unnoticed. With that, there being no further business before the committee, this meeting is adjourned.